Showtime special. I don't think I'm overstating the position if I say MGM is to musicals what, well, Shakespeare is to plays. And an artist who's appeared in quite a few MGM musicals is here, and I hope she's going to tell us about her career and what she's doing at the present time. And it's a very great pleasure to have with us Kathryn Grayson.
Hello, how are you?
May I call you Kathryn?
Please do.
Because I've seen you around for years.
Yes, that's true.
And I must say you haven't changed too much in those years.
Oh, you're very kind, thank you.
Do you spend all your time looking after your appearance?
Heavens, no. Not any, as a matter of fact. I just sort of glue myself together and take off.
Well,
literally.
The heart-shaped face is your distinctive trademark in physical terms, I suppose, and your glorious voice is your trademark in oral terms.
Well, thank you.
Perhaps we could start by playing one of the records that Kathryn's actually brought in with her. This is a rather unusual collection. Is it going to be available in Australia, either of these albums that we'll be
they're
playing?
collector's items. They're put together by Sally Sherman. And I think people will have to get in touch with her because they are collector's items. She's bought up like my first appearance in the Hollywood Bowl with Mario Lanza, for instance. And how she got them, I don't know, because I don't have them. And she has really things that I don't have myself, and that
from broadcasts,
from concerts, from nightclubs. Yes.
What about this one that we're going to play now? Love Is Where You Find It. When was that done?
That was done.
About 1948, was it?
1948, in that great MGM musical, The Kissing Bandit.
Love is where you find it, don't be blinded, all around you, everywhere. Take a chance now, for romance now, tell someone that you care. Spring love comes upon you, when it's gone you feel despair. Soon go in the moon go, you'll find that a new love is there. Love is where you find it, fate designed it to be waiting everywhere. It may hide from you for a while, it may come tonight in a fire, and the flame of a new love, in the arms of a new love, take time to
Love Is Where You Find It.
Well, from the clapping, that must not have come directly from the picture. That must have come from an appearance, right? Right.
Kathryn Grayson has a very long-time friend and associate here who knows more about the legend of Grayson, I suspect, than the person herself does.
It's true. Sally Sherman knows more about, she knows every date and everything I ever did in my life. and I sometimes have to make a long-distance call just to make sure on certain points.
Well, everybody waxes, when I say everybody, certainly anybody who enjoys films waxes nostalgic about the MGM musicals. But I wonder, Kathryn, was it all, as we say, beer and skittles?
It was beautiful. That's all I can say, is that I just wish the talented kids of today had the same opportunities we had in those days, because we had an L.B. Mayer and an Ida Koverman, his executive secretary, who really cared for the younger generation, and really they were interested in talent, and they were interested in presenting that talent. And after schooling, I finished my academic training at MGM in the Little Red Schoolhouse with Elizabeth Taylor and Janie Powell and Gene Reynolds, who is the producer of the MASH series, Terry Kilburn, who is now a very fine director in England, little Maggie O'Brien, my own sister, and my brother Michael.
Was that merely to keep the family together for you, or were your brother and
No, they were
sister?
very talented, as a matter of fact. But the war came along, and Michael was in the Army, and Frances retired to have her 5 children.
That's a pretty full-time job, I would imagine.
It's a pretty full-time job, yes.
But how is it that MGM first met you, signed you up?
I was studying for Grand Opera, and I had sung at a couple of parties, and all of a sudden...
this is in Hollywood, is
yes,
it?
RCA Red Seal Records signed me, and you have one of the first records I ever made in my life, the first record I ever made in my life, the RCA Red Seal Records, the Voce di Primavera, the 2 arias from Lucia. That was the first opera I had ever studied, and it was great fun. And MGM happened to have heard of me at the same time, and I didn't want to be in film, so I kept saying no. And Eddie Cantor heard of me, and he wanted me to become one of his discoveries. And RCA said no, they didn't think that was a wise idea, because he had already discovered Deanna Durbin, Bobby Breen, and Dinah Shore. And they didn't want me a second anybody, so they said, well, why don't you just go talk with MGM? And my music teacher and I went out, and I said, well, I'm telling you, it's that I'm not going to be in pictures, and that's that. I don't want any part of it.
How many American kids would have given their eye teeth?
Well, I suppose a great many, but I really had my heart set on opera, and I realized that no matter what you think yourself, age 15.
Well, you're very determined then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we all are at that age, I think. We all think we know, but I think God upstairs has plans for us that are far better than our own, because I would never have reached as many people or have known as many people had I stayed in opera,
But you might have become a callous.
I don't think I'd be happy being a callous.
Well, she doesn't appear to be too happy.
No, I don't know too many happy opera singers. They have marvelous senses of humor, and they are really marvelous people, but their lives aren't. Well, of course, I can say that for a lot of motion picture people, too. I just have been one of the very
The motion
lucky
picture people
ones.
tend to stand out if their lives are unhappy, though, don't they?
Yes, they do, because
There's no
when they're
news.
not happy, they're really not happy. Yes.
There's no news in a suburban existence,
I
as far as
suppose
the
not.
media
No.
are concerned.
No, I suppose not.
Let's not get too depressed, though.
No, let's be happy.
Let's play some music.
It's a beautiful day.
And Daybreak actually was the one I was going to play next.
Really?
Yeah.
Very happy.
Daybreak, come on day, the mist from a meadow is drifting in the sky now, and flowers break through their blanket of dew. Sunrise, how lovely it seems to see from my window a sky full of dreams, as the white clouds sail on through the blue. At daybreak, I daydream of you. Sunrise, how lovely it seems to see from my window a sky full of dreams, as the white clouds sail on through the blue. At daybreak, I daydream of
I've just been reminded who the pianist was on that.
Yes, Jose Iturbi. He's been a dear friend of mine all these years, and I think he was very, very, very saddened by his sister Amparo's death a few years ago. She was teaching my Patty, my daughter, to her piano.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Now, we've suddenly picked you up in Hollywood, but you weren't born there, were you?
Now, I was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 1000 Apple Street.
What a poetic address.
Isn't it strange? Yes.
And what then took you to Hollywood? Your pursuit of music even at that stage?
No. We had moved to St. Louis, Missouri, and on the Mississippi, where who would ever think that I would be doing showboat someday, you know? But Daddy went to California. We moved to California. Daddy went into the real estate business with his old partner from St. Louis.
And it just happened that placed you in an advantageous position, I imagine.
Well, it was advantageous because of there were more music teachers there than in St. Louis. For me, that was a happy situation for me because, as I say, I was studying for opera.
How did a little girl, though, become so wrapped in opera?
Well, we were raised on the Caruso, Gallicurci, the sextet from Lucia and the quartet from Rigoletto, and we were raised on the classics, as well as my brothers loved Russ Columbo and stars of that era, and Ethel Chate, and people that Ella Fitzgerald, and all those people. And we sang every kind of music, and we would imitate everyone. And I used to imitate Caruso and imitate Frances Alda. And she would do the mezzo, I would do the via mezzo. And none of us realized that it was unusual to have 4-octave ranges, because both brothers and my younger sister we all had 4-octave ranges. Michael, my brother, had studied as a baritone until they found that he could reach the G above high C. And then they said, "Well, you're a tenor." And they said, "No, he's a baritone." No, he's a tenor. And they really don't have they call me a dramatic soprano because I have quite a low range as well as a high. And plus, it's not a small voice. It can be monstrous.
Well, I don't think the choice of word monstrous is quite...
Well, I don't know.
You mean you don't need public address necessarily?
We were rehearsing at the Parmelia Hotel in Perth, and I was just doing a usual rehearsal, and they said that they heard me all over the hotel. So the next day I was going, little squeaks, because I didn't want to be heard.
I thought you were going to tell me that you shattered all the crystal glassware, or...
Not that I know of. I hope not.
One of the rare recordings on these two albums is, I think, the very first disc you ever made.
Yes, for RCA Red Seal. Yes, they.
Voices of Spring.
I don't know where Sally got it because she's traveled the world over and has collected these. This whole collection is from all over the world.
So that was the first record you ever made?
Yes, it was.
Kathryn Grayson.
At the ripe old age of 15, and I didn't know that other youngsters couldn't sing like that. I thought that everybody sang. It was a natural thing for everyone in our family, so I thought it was natural for everyone else too.
How hard did you work at singing at that stage? You had a tutor,
I didn't even
obviously.
consider it work. I loved singing, so our whole family, we loved music, and we were raised with good music, and as I told you, all kinds of music, and all kinds of books, and we were very fortunate, I think, in the fact that we were raised like that.
So the last couple of years of your school life were actually spent
At MGM.
At MGM.
Yes.
I have no doubt you probably had some pretty good teachers in terms of school-type subjects.
Well, school teacher was Mary McDonald, and she taught all the classes, except there would be teachers on the set with various youngsters. But she was the teacher and she taught all 12 grades. And a marvelous woman who's now living down near San Diego. And I was often called the teacher's pet because, as I said before, we had been raised with books and music, and my brother, Michael, was a mathematical genius. So these things that were natural with us, they came naturally, and I suppose the teachers recognized these
Desire
things.
to learn.
And schoolwork was like nothing for us, and we enjoyed it. And the other kids, thought it was a drag. And but it was I think we made everything Our mother was a very superior kind of human being, and she made everything fun for us. Even during the Depression, sometimes there was really nothing to eat in the house. But with her sense of humor, she kept all of us happy, regardless of any situation.
It's a wonderful attribute.
It certainly is. She was a wonderful mother, and we were very fortunate to have had her.
From the time that you were signed up by MGM, a couple of years then elapsed before you actually made a film.
I made the Andy Hardy film at 17, and then graduated in June at 18, and married the following July.
Really?
Yes.
That's pretty young to marry, even
That's what
perhaps in
my
those
family
days.
thought, and the studio thought so too.
There was opposition on both sides?
Yes.
Still?
But Johnny Shelton's wife, Johnny, died about 4.5 years ago in Ceylon. And
your first husband?
His widow and his 4 children moved to Australia.
Is that so?
Yes, from Ceylon. And I've seen them twice since I've been here, and it was a marvelous reunion. Because we never lose anybody. We in our family, we keep
Just
adding,
add.
and it's we keep adding, and it's beautiful.
You told me that you're a grandmother now.
Yes, my Patty gave me a little red-haired granddaughter 2 years ago, and named Kristen Elizabeth, and she has a funny little sense of humor already at the age of 2.
And grandmother is expected back home in Hollywood for Christmas.
I was given an ultimatum.
Well, let's go to another track that your dear friend Sally has whipped out of the past, and this is what you described as an outtake when we were discussing what we might play.
Right.
Could you explain what an outtake is to
An
people?
outtake is you pre-record your music with the orchestra on a soundstage, in the musical soundstage, before the picture starts, as a rule. And sometimes they find that they can't use it, or they shoot it and the film runs too long, so something has to go, so it's chopped out. And this was evidently chopped out because Sally said that there was a scene, and she knows. I don't remember it, but Sally knows. I can depend on her.
This is the Romberg.
Is it Romberg or is it Rudolf Frimmel?
Rudolf Frimmel, I mean.
I must tell you a story about Rudolf Frimmel. I gave him his 80th birthday party at my home. And I thought, after all, poor darling might not make it another year. Well, he made it another 10 years because he died just a couple of years ago at 90.
Tremendous.
And, what a darling man.
Yes.
I was very lucky to have known Jerome Kern when I was a little girl, and to have known Rudolf Frimmel all my life.
Now, he didn't actually write the song that we're going to play,
No,
which is called
that's
A Harp,
Victor Young wrote that.
Harp, a
because-
Fiddle and a Flute.
Yes, Victor Young wrote that.
I'm desperately trying to think what's the name of the film.
The name of the film is The Vagabond King.
The Vagabond King.
Yes.
I really am hopeless. And this was to add another production number, but they decided not to use it.
Yes, well, a lot of writers in those days, they would write extra things for films, wanting the ASCAP credits.
The
Plus the money.
American Society of Composers and Authors.
Right.
And Producers, is it? ASCAP. Yeah, I think it is.
Yes.
It's a sort of an umbrella copyright
Right.
organisation.
Yes.
And this one was a good song, but it never really saw light of day.
Well, it's a charming little ditty. As you can you have to judge for yourself.
Whenever the world looks grim and gray and a terrible thought takes root, there's naught can drive that thought away like a harp and a fiddle and a flute. You never need weep or lose morale when your caviar tastes like carp. Go lose yourself in the musicale with a flute and a fiddle and a harp. Some ladies can hear a cello and how mellow they become, and any stout-hearted fellow likes the sound of a pounding drum. However, each time that I'm depressed and the sighing of a suitor doesn't suit, I choose the music I like best from a harp and a fiddle and a flute. Let the harp play staccato with the fiddle's warm vibrato, and then let the flute toot an obbligato. I choose the music I like best from a harp and a fiddle and a flute.
What a delightful little song. It's called A Harp, a Fiddle and Flute, and it didn't appear in The Vagabond
No, it was
King in
written by
1954.
Victor Young, yes.
Kathryn Grayson, over the years, with the development of superior techniques in recording and so on, the way that films are made must have changed a lot. But going back to your very first musical,
Andy Hardy's Private Secretary, yes.
there was music in that, was there?
Oh, yes.
Ah.
Oh, yes. I did as a matter of fact, I did the mad scene from Lucia, and Mr. Mayer believed in, I think, I've Got My Eyes on You, and, he believed in, if someone didn't like one kind of music, they were bound to like one of them.
It's surprising, I suppose, in a way, that some of the operatic arias that were in films at that time, that Hollywood didn't suppose that the public wouldn't be interested in hearing music.
It never occurred to Mr. Mayer not to give the public a choice. I have felt that's because I do that in my concerts. I give people a little bit of everything, and I find that oddly enough that they ask for everything, including the arias. And you think that people say, "Oh, no," and I did arias for a children's concert, and they were like little mice. They were so quiet. I think it's the way you present things to people. You don't sing to children as you sing to grown-ups, and yet if you have a conglomeration, if you have oldsters and youngsters and middle-aged people in your audience, then you play to that, or whatever audience you have, and they communicate with you, and you communicate with them, and they almost guide you in what you do.
Must have been difficult, though, going back to the earlier days, when it was much more of a technical problem to get music on film. For instance, when you did musical sequences, was the orchestra there playing with you for each take, or
no, we pre-recorded with our symphony orchestra. The orchestra was on the sound stage as we pre-recorded. Then we sang back to the music on stage, and you had to sing with it. If you didn't sing it, you didn't look like you were singing.
If you were out of sync with...
I know that I was accused many times of not even being a singer, because it didn't look like it was a struggle for me. It was easy for me to sing, and it looked too easy, but I was actually singing along with the recordings.
How do you feel nowadays about, are you a perfectionist, and do some of perhaps there must be minor blemishes, I imagine, even
always.
in completed films?
You're never really completely happy with anything you do. I mean, you say, I should have done that this way instead of that way, and you're never completely happy, because there's always room for improvement.
But you're not made uncomfortable by some of your earlier...
Once in a while, yes.
You see things, of course, that other people don't see.
Yes, I do. I say, I wish I had done this instead of that, you know. And Spencer Tracy was marvelous, because we were, in our teaching, our dramatic lessons, we were taken down to a projection room to see how a scene could be stolen without anyone speaking a word. And there was a scene in Boomtown. Claudette Colbert was riding in a car and Clark Gable, and they had the dialogue. And Spencer Tracy was sitting just behind them listening. You never saw Claudette Colbert or Clark Gable because of his reactions to Spencer Tracy's reactions to their conversation. He was that fine an actor, you know. So there's always room for learning, you know. And he was a past master at acting, and so was Gable, and so was Colbert. These people, some of the younger people go and study and study and study, and never have the natural talent that these people had. And I think they're just now coming into their own, because they think Clark Gable wasn't really an actor until they realize now what a really great actor that man was.
I was privileged the other night to see That's Entertainment Part 2. I hadn't seen the first one, so I can't make comparisons, but when you see those fine moments of cinema vignetted and brought up to date with a good copy of the film, and the sound clean and so on, you really do see some tremendous acting.
Well, you know, we own theaters in America, and we can't get enough new product. So we have one new film, and then we play one old film with it. And we have like the Brentwoods 1 and 2, and you buy a theater and have an older theater, and then make it into 3 separate theaters. And we find that the youngsters come in to see the new film and go out falling in love with the old film. You see, and the technique, when they see the beautiful sets, the beautiful lighting, the beautiful camera work, the costuming, and we didn't realize that the technique, but we had master craftsmen all around us. We didn't realize it at the time, but they don't have that today. And our master craftsmen are now in colleges teaching the youngsters who have seen those old films and want to learn, and they too want to start making films as they were made in those days. We've had a group of people that have not been interested in building a film industry, but just using the film industry to get a lot of money and run with it. Not to build an industry, or to build stars, or to build anything, really. They just were in it for the money. And now the young people are seeing the difference, and they too want to make really fine films. and that gives you, me at least, great pleasure.
I'm wondering, though, whether the money will ever be available to make things on the scale that MGM made them. Some of those lavish productions, the number of people
You know
taking
something?
part.
I have an intuition about that. I think they will. I
Do you?
think they'll find a way. Yes, I think the youngsters. I have a lot of faith in the young people today. I think they'll find a way.
You obviously like some of the music of today too. The next one we've got to play is Both Sides Now.
All righty. Yes, I do.
When did you make this?
We were just talking about that. Actually, the Beatles and some of the modern people have given some very lovely, lovely songs to the world.
Flowers and flowers of angel hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done. The clouds got in my way. I looked at clouds from it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel, and every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. But only love from we lose them still. It's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all.
Obviously a concert performance again.
Yes, again.
A few years ago. Where was that done?
That was at the South Sydney Junior Leagues.
Actually done here in
Yes,
Australia.
yes.
I got a tremendous shock when you told me this was your
Sixth
visit to
yes,
Australia.
Yes.
When was number one? You must have made some reasonably good impressions.
Well, since I had been invited since just before we all entered the war. My first concert, RCA was going to send me down, and then the war came along, and then I was invited just after the war, but I didn't get here until 1964, when I played the Checkers.
And I hope we're perhaps going to see you from time to time in the future.
Oh yes, because I have so many friends. I have my own Australian family here, as well as my first husband's family and his widow are here. They're very close friends of mine and very dear to me.
Don't want to be harking back always to MGM, but Kathryn, why do you suppose the company seems to have come unstuck somewhat, doesn't it?
Well, They had Danny Melnick. We were just at the Cannes Film Festival, and he did things very much in the L.B. Mayer fashion. It was a beautiful trip, and everyone was treated very much in the
Grand
as we
tradition.
were treated in the tradition of the glamour era, and everything was handled in that whole category, you know. And but Danny is now making films at Columbia, I believe. And Dick Kahn, who is another master at that, has taken the helm. And I just hope they recapture some of those days for the sake of the younger people.
When that tremendous auction of MGM props took place, that seemed a very sad thing to happen. Did it
was
affect
very
you?
sad, and I think all the MGMers were very sad about that, because they sold off Lot 2 with Esther Williams' swimming pool. They sold off Lot 3 with our showboat, and to make conglomerates, and you know, to make housing projects. And
did you acquire any of your old wardrobe or things
no,
associated
but
with your
Elizabeth
films?
Taylor and Annie Miller and Janet Leigh and a number of I didn't have enough sense in those days to ask for I could have had them. For
Oh,
the
as you made
asking.
them, you mean?
You know, as I made the films, I
Yes.
could have had them had I had enough sense to ask, but I didn't. The other girls did, however, because my clothes were when I was finished with a picture, they were like brand new, because I was very very particular about everything I wore. As a matter of fact, you know, when the designers say they designed, actually you were mostly in on the designing yourself, because you were designing really for yourself. They would give a sketch, and then you would redo that for your own figure. So you were as much a designer of your own clothes as the designer himself or herself.
I can remember reading somewhere that on one occasion a dress designer you felt dreadful things to you. Somebody
I was
you'd
so
looked
looking
to.
forward, because he was such a great designer.
Who was that?
And Adrian, and he made those beautiful, simple lines, that gorgeous things for Joan Crawford and Garbo, and the studio brought him back to design the clothes for Lovely to look at, particularly the clothes scene. What was it? The fashion show that Vincent Minnelli directed. And I have the kind of figure that doesn't need ruffles and bows and, you know, as a matter of fact, it's I don't know, but it was just awful, because I had little ruffles going different directions, and on one occasion he had little plastic bubbles on one dress.
Oh, those were the grapes, were they? Or something called...
Yes, and I went around popping them, and I said, "Here, help me pop these miserable things." And everybody would come up and say, "Hello, Katie," and they would pop some of the bubbles. Oh, he was very disturbed about that, but I was very disappointed in this very great talent and what he did in our show. I didn't like that at all, but I understand, was not physically well at that time. He died very shortly afterward, and I didn't realize that he was ill and not at his best.
Do you have happier memories of the Desert Song, 53?
Oh yes, I actually enjoyed, good, bad, or indifferent. I enjoyed each film, because I'm happy doing whatever I'm doing at the moment, and you know, why not? We have this life to live, and why not be happy doing
Sure.
what you're doing? And Gordon was a beautiful voice.
Gordon McRae.
Gordon McRae had a lovely voice, and the people with whom I worked were marvelous people, and I loved the sound and the sound recorder at the studio. Dave Forrest could read music, and when there was a pianissimo, he allowed a pianissimo, and when there was a fortissimo, he allowed a fortissimo, because he could read the scores and read the music and knew what the scene called for. And he was a magnificent sound recorder, the best, I think, that I've ever come across.
This then will be an example of his work that we're to play now, the duet from the Desert Song.
Oh, yes, I guess so.
Heaven and you and I and sand kissing a moonlit sky, the desert breeze whispering a lullaby, only stars above you to see. I love you. Oh, give me that night divine and let my arms in yours entwine. The desert song calling, its voice enthralling, will make you mine.
Blue heaven and you and I and sand kissing a moonlit sky, the desert breeze whispering a lullaby, only stars above you to see. I love you. Give me that night divine and let my arms in yours entwine. The desert song calling, its voice enthralling, will make you
There was Gordon MacRae singing with our guest tonight, Kathryn Grayson, the duet from the Desert Song. I was going to ask you whether Gordon MacRae is still singing.
Oh, yes, we rehearsed at the house about 2 months ago, and we were going to do the Palladium again, and for Jeffrey Kruger, and then Mr. Sir Lou Grade decided to take over the whole situation, and I think there was a legal thing, so we didn't go. And Gordon, we might do the season in New Zealand, March, April, and May.
He's got a great voice, there's no doubt about it.
Beautiful voice, beautiful quality.
I want to ask you, and we haven't too much time left, and I can't leave the subject of the men you've sung with without mentioning, of course, Mario Lanza.
That's true. That was the great voice, I think, of great masculine voice of all time.
Was he easy to work with in the musical sense?
At times. At the first film, he was a dream, and then success came a little rapidly, and I think sometimes success is harder to take than failure. And he had a great deal of hangers-on, many hangers-on, and I think that helped ruin his life and his wife's life.
That's very sad.
Terribly sad, because it was such a great talent, and the world really lost something very marvelous when they lost him.
You gave a concert once at the Hollywood Bowl.
Mario and I gave several concerts, but this one was September 26, 1948, and my Patty was born the 7th of October, which was only a little over a week or so later that she was born.
And singing in such a... I've been there once. Singing in such a huge arena, do you use any sort of public address build-up for the...
Well, you know, I have such a carrying voice that it carries so far that when I did Vietnam, for instance, the enemy mortared in on my voice, and they had to get me out of Vietnam in a hurry because they said they wished that I was on the other side.
Kathryn, Kathryn. I don't think I can believe that.
No, that's true.
Is it really?
It's true. And
must
I
be
ended up
very
doing
close to the front
hospital
line.
tour in Japan because they zeroed in on my voice because it carried through the whole jungle throughout all of South Vietnam. It just as it did at the Parmelia Hotel. It just carries, that's all.
Perhaps we have a secret weapon sitting here.
I don't know whether it's good for the enemy or for us.
Well, let's play the love duet from Madame Butterfly, which I see was recorded in 1951, but with Mario Lanza.
Yes.
Perché non fugga più, io so ghermita, ti serro palpitante, sei mia. Vieni, vieni, via dall'anima intera, l'angoscia paurosa, vieni, palpitante
I think that's a lovely note to say goodbye and thank you to Australia.
Thank you, Kathryn Grayson. Well, it's been an operatic night almost on Radio 1 tonight. Do hope you've enjoyed our special. Next week, somebody very, very different.